deviseth to do evil shall be called mischievous, a mischievous person. We're talking tonight about people who plan evil, who kind of plot and scheme, who premeditate crime. I suppose the worst kind of crimes are premeditated crimes, planned crimes. One of the worst things amongst us Christians that I can understand anyway is planned rebellion, planned disobedience. What I'm talking about is I'm going to the lake fishing Sunday. You are going against God. You are planning to do something that is not right. I'm planning to go to the ball game Sunday. And it's more important to me to drive to Detroit to see the Detroit Lions play than it would be for me to be in Sunday school and in church. And the game probably won't get over in time for me to get back for the evening service, but I'm going to go anyway. That is planned rebellion. That is planned disobedience to God. I'm going to take a job. I need the money, but it requires me to miss church on Sunday and Wednesday night. But I'm going to take it anyway. That is planned rebellion. Can you understand what I'm saying? I'm going to cheat on a test. That's planned. I'm going to lie about so-and-so. I don't really like them. They're in my way, and I'd like to destroy them. I'd like to hurt them. I'd like to put them down, so I'm not going to tell the truth about them. That's preconceived sin, and probably the worst kind of sin that anybody could ever commit. I mean, listen to me, you're going to sin enough by accident that you don't have to think up something evil and wicked to sin about. I hope you're following my direction, my thoughts tonight. When you start planning sin, planning rebellion, you are on the road to ruin. If nothing else, you're going to ruin your testimony. Everybody in the world will know that you are a mischievous person. That's what our verse calls them. No one will ever be able to trust you. The natural mind, all of our minds, trend towards wickedness. There may be some super spiritual screwball in this class. Oh, not me, Brother Green. I only think pure things and good things. And don't try to tell me that, because you're just like the rest of us, rotten to the core.
That's right, yeah.
And if you're not careful, you will plan some disobedience to God. You will plan going down the aisle at the grocery store that has the girly magazines. Well, you got the message. You can do a lot of things that are right. You don't have to do that which is wrong. I was thinking about, I have a lot of material on this verse, but I'm not going to use it all, but we get involved in a lot of evil. a lifetime. I think I've mentioned this on several occasions in this class, but in that it's here tonight, I'm going to mention it again. You could very well plan to listen to rock music on your radio, television, whatever, your record, whatever. That is planned disobedience. When you deliberately do something you know is wrong. And you say, well, Brother Green, I know I'm a Christian, but I just love rock music. Brother Green, I am a rock music Christian. You can say all you want to say to me, but I doubt very much if you ever got saved. Now, you may be misled. You may be following somebody else that does those things, and you considered, well, if they do it, it must be all right for me to do it. But I'm telling you tonight, it is not right for you to do it. And when you buy those kind of records, and when you go to that extreme, you are doing just exactly what our verse says. He that deviseth to do evil shall be called a mischievous person. You are, when you go to the Blockbuster and buy a video or rent a video that you know is not right, you are planning your own life, and you are becoming a theater manager so that you can have what you want on your little theater in your own home, in your own privacy. Now, Brother Green is not a hard nut. I am not a screwball. I just say, you know, when you bought that crack cocaine, when you bought that marijuana, you deliberately knew what you were going to do with it. And when you bought that case of beer or that bottle of whiskey or whatever you bought or whatever you do, whenever you paid your money to buy a lottery ticket, it's planned. It's planned. And you can say all you want to say, but you are a very mischievous and wicked person. And in God's eyes, you are rebellious and wicked. You can say, well, I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian, but I do steal. You're not a Christian. I mean, I can understand a person stealing something one or two times, maybe in their lifetime. You got a weak moment, you saw something, you took it. I can understand a person doing that. But I don't know how you could habitually do those things and feel like you was a born-again Christian. You understand what I'm saying? You're a mischievous person, and you're on very shaky ground in concerning even salvation. When you disobey, when you deliberately don't come to church, and it is a planned thing, that is rebellion. And if you don't have enough religion to take you to church, you won't have enough religion to take you to heaven. So I'm a Christian, but I'm not a church-going Christian. Oh, no, wait a minute now. God has a lot of grace and long-suffering for people who are sick, who are afflicted, who have emergencies and difficulties. That's understandable. Anybody with any sense would know that there's things that come up in a man or person's life where they just cannot do certain things. But if it happens Sunday after Sunday after Sunday, it's like I said so many times, like the Old Testament said, if the ox is in the ditch on the Sabbath, well, then you can get the ox out of the ditch. But if the ox kept getting in the ditch every Sabbath, every Sunday, then I'd either shoot the ox or fill in the ditch. You're letting something stand in your way of being faithful to God, and you are going to lose your testimony. So don't allow your mind to think about doing evil things. That's pretty well what that verse is saying to us in our character building lesson. Now, verse number 9, the thought of foolishness is sin, and the scorner is an abomination. Again, we're talking about really foolish people. The thought of a fool. I'm thinking of foolishness is sin. When you scoff, when you scorn, that's sin. Now let me clear this thing. When I say the thought of foolishness is sin, back in the backdrop of my mind and heart, there is a lot of humor, a lot of stories, we call them jokes. And I could sit here and talk to you perhaps for 2 or 3 hours and never repeat one joke. I could tell one right after the other. Now, there's nothing wrong with a joke, but when it's foolishness that's hurtful, when it's dirty jokes, hurtful jokes, suggestive jokes, then that is wicked. And the thought of that foolishness is sin. But just to have fun without hurting somebody or belittling somebody or slamming or slurring somebody, you know, one has to be careful about that these days, especially ethnic jokes, because people are so touchy about all of this kind of thing. It never was that way years ago, and it still shouldn't be, but it is. One has to be careful where they are and what they are, and who you're talking to, or else you can get some. I know a boy just last week got fired at his job for telling a black boy a black joke. And he didn't think it was funny, turned him in, and he got fired. That's the way it is. But your thoughts and your thought life is pretty important. I was just thinking about James and 1 and 12. Blessed is the man that endureth temptation. For when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord hath promised to them that love him. Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Then when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin. And sin, when it is finished, brings forth death. Do not err, my beloved brethren. Otherwise, what he's saying, your thoughts, the thoughts of the foolish, is sin. You can have a thought that is vulgar or filthy or unkind, and if you're not careful, you'll think upon that thought. You can't stop the thoughts from coming, but you need to be careful that they don't get to a place where you dwell upon those thoughts, and then you're tempted to follow through and do what you're thinking. That would be sin. Can you understand? It's like you've heard me say, you can't stop the birds from flying over your head, but you can sure stop them from building a nest in your hair. And as it says here, the thought of the foolish is sin, but the scorner is an abomination. And if I would think in parallel and thinking just like the previous verse. Now, going to have bad thoughts. Everybody has evil thoughts. And if you don't, would you see me after class? I'd like to rub shoulders with you. I'd like to just sort of kind of get next to holiness, all of its purity. But we all have bad thoughts. But when it's just constantly bad, I would check up, if I were you, whether I was really born again. Because that kind of filthy stuff and holiness and spirituality just does not go together in the same body. When you're a godly person, you have bad thoughts, but you don't possess them. You don't think of them. You don't allow them. And like I've said so many times, it's like teaching kindergartners almost. You have to go over something over and over again, but you get the thoughts up in here, and you can shoo them out of there. But if you're not careful, they'll get down in here into your heart. And when they get into your heart, it's very difficult to get them out. And as a man thinketh, I thought you thought with your brain. Well, you do. But you also think with your heart. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Those wickedness and wrong things can get down in your heart, and it's ever so hard to get them out of that place there in your heart. We're going to go to verse 10. I'm not running a marathon on these verses, but a lot of them I have covered in previous times and chapters, and I don't want to be redundant too much, and yet I want to be faithful. There's new students all the time, and they need to hear it all. So, but in verse 10, if thou faint in the day of adversity, thy strength is small. A person can really find out who he is, and how good he is, and how strong he is, by what it takes to discourage you. If we fail in a time of trial, oh, phooey on the whole thing, and just throw the towel in, so I'm quitting. I've had 2 or 3 people just recently, I mean, pastor, preacher friends of mine, just throwing the towel. So I'm all done. I'm all done with it. Yeah. You know, you do something and then somebody will criticize you for it, and you do something else and somebody else will work ill for that, and I'm tired of it. But you see, you don't have the grace that God has wanted to give to you. If thou faint in the day of adversity, when things are going against you, your strength is small. It's proof that you're weak. And I want to tell you, dear class, are you listening to me? Don't be one of those slippy, sloppy, good-for-nothing Christians that are always getting your feelings hurt and always getting discouraged because somebody didn't shake your hand or smile at you or this or that or the other thing. You didn't get recognized. When you sang a solo, nobody said anything nice about you. And when you preached or went la 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 la, then there's nothing to you. You're nothing. You are a nobody. And you never will amount to anything neither until you get yours act upright. And when you do what you do it for the glory of God, whether anybody else likes it or not. I have a little something. I've preached 50 years in this church. I've pastored now for 56 years. And if you don't think I've got shot out of the saddle, you're a crazy boy. I get shot out of the saddle nearly every week. Nearly every week. You know what I say in my heart? Don, you're doing the best you can, the only way you know how to do it. And if that isn't good enough for them, the 4 wins on them. Amen. That's what you do. You have to. Just don't ever, I'm not being braggadocious, but I never get discouraged. I don't allow myself to get discouraged. That's just what the devil would want me to do. And I don't want to have any part or lot in that sort of thing. And if you just quit, it's because you can't take it. And that's what Harry Truman said about the presidency. You know, you take President Bush. He's shot out of the saddle all the time, all the time. You say, well, why he's a bad man? Oh, he's not a bad man. He's just president. And everybody, Harry Truman said, if it's too hot in the kitchen, get out. Can you understand that? If it's too hot for you, you can't take responsibility, you can't take leadership, you can't take criticism, you just get out. If it's too hot in the kitchen, get out. I like that. You know, Harry Truman wasn't much of a Christian. He would claim to be a Baptist, but he wasn't too much of, he was a kind of a cussing Baptist. He'd use a lot of profanity. But he did have some grit in his craw and sand in his pants, and I like that kind of person. And if you're going to stay in the Lord's work, that's exactly what you're going to have, or you won't do it. Like the old saying, when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. You understand that? Let me say it again. When the going gets tough, the people that are tough, they get going. People will know just what kind of a Christian you are is when the time of testing comes and whether you can take it or not. Peter said this, 1 Peter 1:7, that the time of your faith, the trial of your faith, being much more precious than of gold, that perisheth, though it be tried with fire, might be found unto praise and honor and glory at the appearing of Jesus Christ. You have that grit in your craw to be able to do it. Those trials of life, it's kind of like a refining process. You're tried by fire, fiery trials, hot stuff. They tell me, now I don't know this antique, this is antiquity, that they tell me the old silversmiths that worked in silver years ago, they would have a pot which they used to melt down the silver. And the more heat underneath that pot would bring the dross. You know what I'm talking about, dross? That's scum, that's trash, that's in that silver. The heat would force that dross to the top, and they would scum off or skim off that scum, trash, and throw it away, and then turn the heat up more, and more dross would come to the top, and they'd work at getting the dross out of the silver until it was pure silver. And they'd tell me that an old silversmith could tell when it was pure. They could see the reflection of their own face in the silver. And that's about the way it is spiritually speaking. God turns up the heat to get the dross out of our life until he can see the image of himself in our lives. Does that make sense to you? And that's what he's talking about here. And it's, be not weary in well-doing, for in due season ye shall reap if you faint not. And fainting is a sign of weakness. You just don't quit. If thou faint in the day of adversity, thy strength is small. I like that song. It will be worth it all when we see Jesus. Just one glimpse of his dear face, all sorrow will erase. So bravely run the race until we see Christ. It's going to have bad times and good times, but it'll be worth all of it when you get to see him. Just don't allow Satan to discourage you. I say, write this down. Don't give up. Don't give in. Don't give out. Don't give over. Don't give way to the devil. Just keep on keeping on, no matter what comes your way. That's the kind of Christian, that's the kind of character that good Christians have. They can overcome. I'm speaking a lot tonight about overcoming, because I really feel like, class, that if you don't overcome, and you just say what you want to, I'm an old man, and I can say a lot of things, get away with it, I guess. I believe it's based on a lot of observation over all of my years of being a Christian and being in the Lord's work. You see people get in, they get saved, they get baptized, and they flop and fizzle. About the average lifespan of a Christian is 5 years. 5 years. And they fold up and flop and fizzle and go belly up. I would say they never got saved. You saw they backslid. Now, well, I think there's a lot less people backslide you think that backslid. They never front slid. They never got saved. So I believe when you really get saved, you will endure to the end. You will. You will. You may flop and fizzle and fall 6 or 7 or 8 times. But on the other hand, you're going to get back up and go again if you're a Christian. Now, don't take me wrong. I believe in eternal security. But you have to be saved before you get that. So, that's good preaching, brother. Okay. Proverbs 24 and 11 and 12. If thou forbear to deliver them that drawn into death, and those that are ready to be slain, if thou sayest, behold, we knew it not, doth not he that pondereth the heart consider it? And he that keepeth the soul, doth he not know it? And shall not he render to every man according to his works? If you fail to deliver somebody that is, let's say, drowning, you were witnessing standing right there, and you was in perfect health and was physically able and knew how to go about it, and you let somebody drown when you knew you could have saved their lives. Don't you know God is looking on and see that very thing? If you could snatch somebody from the burning, if you know how to rescue somebody in a firing house, a house on fire, and you just knew they were in there and you didn't do a thing about it, and you say, well, I didn't know, I was afraid and I didn't do anything. God said, don't you think I see all this? And if you know of souls that are lost without God, without Christ, without hope, and you don't try to warn them and win them to Christ, don't you think God knows a little bit about that too? I think one of the driving forces of my life is the awesomeness of failing God. The awesomeness of standing before God and giving an account of failing God. Maybe that doesn't mean anything to you, but he that pondereth the heart knoweth the truth. Render every man according to his works. I really would like to preach about right now, and I brought a whole pack of stuff that I've been putting together for years about this sort of thing. And I wrote down here 9 things that I fear the most in my life. Number 1, I fear backsliding on God. I fear that. You say, oh, Brother Green, I know. But a lot of people, a lot smarter than I am, a lot more spiritual than I've ever been, people that know the Bible a lot better than I know it, people who have lived a better Christian life than I've lived, have backslid on God. Number two, I fear having bitterness take over in my life and be one of those, Brother McDonald, that sit in the seat of the scornful and just bitter. And that ruins and wrecks a lot of Christians in my eyes. Number three, to be bewitched by some evil spirit, some demonic power to get a hold of me and influence me and fill my mind with stuff that ought not to be in there and do wicked things because of the influence of some evil spirit. You say, Brother Green, that'll never happen to you. You know, again, I say it's happened to better people than me. Number four, to be barred from the throne of grace. Having some sin in my life where I couldn't make my prayers get through to heaven, Brother Bill, that would be, I fear that. I really, honest, I do. I've cried and I have wept over those things. Even the slightest discord, arguing with my wife, or chiding with my children. And oh, God, please, all I want to do is do right. Lord, forgive me where I've grieved you and whatever, so that I could have my prayers answered. And I'm not being a smart aleck or super spiritual screwball, but I really believe in prayer. And I really believe God hears me when I pray. If I didn't, I'd be the dumbest cluck in the world to pray, is what I say. He doesn't always answer just like I want him to, but he hears me anyway. He might say yes, he may say no, he might say wait. Brother Greg, he might say just wait a while, but he always answers it. Well, number five, the thing I fear most is having blood on my hands, not being a soul winner like I could be or should be. And I'll have to stand before God with that someday. Number six, this is a fearful thing, is to be banned from service, put on the shelf and not be used of God anymore. Paul was even careful about that. Number seven is to be banished of the power of the Holy Ghost on my life. I want the power, I'm telling you the truth, class. It may sound a little super spiritual, but I want God's power on my life more than I want my wife, more than I want my children, or this church, or anything else in the world. I want God's power on my life. When you put something like that ahead of everything else, I'm telling you from this down deep in my soul. I was in Beirut, not Beirut, Lebanon. I was in Amman, Jordan. And I was on a tour through Israel. And Faye, my wife, had gone to Israel. We weren't married. There were 16 of us in our group. And when we flew over the Atlantic, I sat alongside of Faye. Her husband had been killed in an accident. And she was single and I was single. And I just talked to her all the way over there, and she talked to me and had good fellowship. We got into Israel and Jerusalem. I said, Faye, would you be so kind as to stick by me and let's fellowship some more as we travel. But it got pretty thick and heavy there for a little bit. She had come before we went. She'd come to hear me preach at camp meetings all over the South. I guess her motives were pure, but I'd see her out there in the congregation. But anyway, to make a long story short, I talked to my dear friend, Carl Lackey, who was my preacher friend, buddy. And I said, Carl, I don't know what to do about this woman. He said, I'll tell you what you better do, boy. You better hook onto her real quick like, or somebody else is going to snatch her up and you won't have that girl. She's a good girl. She's a wonderful woman. She'll be so good for you and good for your ministry. I asked another good friend of mine about it. He said, listen, that woman is a moneymaker. She knows how to make money, and she knows how to keep money and not spend money, and she's a good woman. You'll never miss if you take this girl. Well, I got thinking about it, and my dad was dead. He died just a few years before that, so I got down in my bedroom, and I knelt, and I said, now, Lord, my dad is dead. I would go to my dad, and I'd ask my dad for a direction. But would you tell me, Lord, can I have Faye as my wife and still have the power of God on my life? Now, Lord, if I can't have the power of God and have her, I don't want her. I don't want her. And he knew my heart. And I said, now, can I have her and have the power of God? And he said, yes, you can have both if you want it. So the next day, I went and bought a diamond ring. I mean, look at that. We were in Israel probably 6 days. I was buying a diamond ring. You buy them cheaper over there. Yeah, you can. You buy nice ones cheaper. So I went and bought a diamond ring. And the next day we went to Israel, to Jerusalem. We were in Amman, Jordan. We went over to Jerusalem, and we were over at Mount Calvary. This was about 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and I walked her over there to Calvary, and I said, Faye, I'm going to ask you something. Would you consider marrying me? And she said, yes. And I took a ring, this ring, and we promised we wouldn't touch it, and we never touched each other. I never touched her one time, not even to touch her. And I slipped this ring on her finger at the foot of Calvary, and I looked up, and there was the Big Dipper. You could see it, the Big Dipper, and the moon, of course, is in conjunction with that. And the moon had like it was just like a banana, only it was turned around so that all of the blessings of God were falling down upon us that night. And we got home, and within a week after we got home, we were married. Now that's the way I do business. The first wife, I married her. I went with her 6 weeks and got married. All this tomfoolery of chasing women is a bunch of foolishness. You just marry them. That's what you do. But anyway, I was telling you about getting banished, and my wife was making the same prayer. She fasted, and she said, God, if Don marrying me would cause him to lose the power of God in his life, I don't want to marry him. And so it was pretty well generally understood. And that's why I say number 7, one of the things I fear most is banished of the Holy Spirit of God. It means more to me than my wife. Literally, God knows that. And number 8 was to be barren at the Bema Seat. I said there was 9. That's close enough. There's 8. I didn't count them just right, but that's pretty well that's pretty well the desires of my heart. And you can understand what I'm saying here in this connection with this verse. I don't want to do anything that would grieve God. don't want to consider it. I want to be faithful to those around about me. I don't know how you feel about it. Maybe you don't even have any thoughts at all. But it's scary. It's scary when you think about the awesomeness of failing God, any way you want to look at it, and have to give an answer to God for it. I better hurry. And I'm sorry I'm so slow. I don't know how to do it any different. This way I've been doing it all this 24 chapters, and I just don't know how to do it any other ways, but just express these building lessons from these Proverbs and structure for your life that will help and enhance you in the Lord's work. Number 13, 14. My son, eat thou honey, because it is good, and the honeycomb, which is sweet to the taste. So shall the knowledge of wisdom be upon thy soul. When thou hast found it, then thou shalt be, and there shall be a reward, and thy expectation shall not be cut off. I'm going to give you what I feel this verse is rendering to us. He's speaking of knowledge and wisdom. He said they're like honey. They're like the honeycomb in the mouth. It's just nothing like it. So sweet, so wonderful. That maybe you are a person that don't like honey. I want to tell you, I feel sorry for you. I could eat a bucket of it right now. But I know it makes me sick, but I say that I like it. I'm not eating it right now because I'm trying to cut my weight. But boy, I love it, love it, love it. I put it on everything. People laugh at me, but I do. I put it on grapefruit. I like it. Put it right on top of the grapefruit. You get that sweet and sour stuff together. Ooh, it's great. And I like it on my bread, and I like it on my oatmeal. I like it. I just like it. I like it on my peanut butter. And he said that's what knowledge and wisdom is like. It's just good. Your life will be enhanced with knowledge. And I've said this hundreds of times in this class. Greg, you've heard it. You'll probably think that Brother Green is just redundant. But I want to say it anyway. That no man's knowledge, no man's judgment is any better than their knowledge. Listen, write it down. No man's judgment is any better than his knowledge of any given situation. It wouldn't make any difference what we want to talk about. If you have knowledge about it, it's not a problem at all. You know, the doctor, you go to the doctor, he studied anatomy, he studied biochemistry, he's studied medical science, he's studied his medical journals. He gets one every day, I suppose, and all the research that's being done on all sorts of different maladies. And he's endeavoring with all of the research, with all of the knowledge, to be able to diagnose, prognose your case and do something about it. I have a doctor friend who told me just a few months back, he said when he got his license, he had to know 10,000 prescriptions. That's a lot of prescriptions by memory. So he's endeavoring to understand the body, what actions and reactions and chemical reactions and whatever it might be from different products and different medications and applications, whether it be surgery or whatever it might be. He's studied. I wouldn't want to go to a doctor that hadn't studied. I think it's required 8 years at least to become a doctor. And a scientist, he'd have to study whatever he's majoring in, animal, fish, plants, whatever. He has to study, listen to lectures and read his books, and read this and read that. But you know, really when it comes right down to it, his judgment will not be any better than his knowledge. Whatever he knows, he'll be able to apply that. And you you go to military school, and you train to be a general or a leader or a lieutenant or a captain, or most of those when you come out of military academy, you get an officer, you become a lieutenant or whatever. But they teach you battle strategy, and they teach you procedures. You wouldn't want to go to war without somebody didn't know what they were doing when they got out there, or calling the shots, and they didn't know the shots to call. But I want to tell you now, I'm coming right back to where you are. You're thinking about going in the Lord's work. You better know what you're doing. If I was going to be in the market business or in the industries or sales or farming or politics or law, and if I was going to be a pastor, I better know what I am doing and get my training. Know a little bit about the answers to questions, and specifically the Bible and human relationships. I would say, Brother Dale, that my ministry is about 95% PR work, public relationships. That's about what it amounts to. It's about 5% preaching, and the rest of it is ministration and taking care of the details and calling the shots. I'm trying to tell you, class, that get all the knowledge, get all the wisdom, and get all the experience that you can. And it'll appear to you, like Solomon said, as sweet as honey. You know, most people spend years in preparation for their life's work and occupation. And the more you understand and have knowledge of, wisdom concerning that, the better off you're going to be. He said, honey is so good, it's so sweet, so good for you. But so is preparation to get an education, to get some knowledge, to get some wisdom. And I think if you read the rest of that verse, in verse 14, then there shall be a reward, and thy expectation shall not be cut off. Now, what do you expect? I mean, what do you expect? What do you want? What would you expect for the rest of your life? Maybe you expect me a blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Or maybe you'd like to have some wisdom and know what you're doing, where you're going, have your head screwed on right and go in the right direction. There will be an expectation. I have had that in my heart all these years, what I've expected out of my life, what I wanted out of my life, and prepared for that, got some knowledge, got some wisdom. It's like honey. Whatever you expect in your life, 99 chances out of 10 you'll get what you go after. If you go after it, you'll get it. If you don't know where you're going, you forget it. Let me give you one other thought, and I'm gonna go on to something else. But I want to tell you something about this verse that always intrigued me. He said, "Eat thou honey." He told you to eat it because it's good. And the honeycomb, which is sweet to the taste, so shall the knowledge of wisdom be unto thy soul. Now he's talking about spiritual things, and he's talking about physical things. I want to tell you the value. Are you listening to me, class?
Sir.
Listen. I don't know how many times over these years of my ministry, I come, say, Sunday night, I've got to preach. I'm tired. I preached in the morning. I wore myself out, and I've got to preach. My brain is on vacation. I'm tired, but I've got to be faithful and preach. So I pray like everything depends upon God. Then I'd say, Lord, would you let me do this? And I'd take a glass of water. You look at me now. First of all, I don't take the water. I take and put about 6 teaspoons of vinegar, raw vinegar. You buy it at the health food store. Raw vinegar. You don't have to pay attention to me just because you think I'm a screwball, but I got more sense in 5 minutes. Most of you have the next 5 years. I've tried it. Works. You take about 5 to 6 teaspoons of vinegar. Teaspoons. And you put about 1 teaspoon of honey, or maybe a little more if you like it, and you take that and mix that up together in the bottom of that glass. Because if you put the water in, the water's cold and that honey and that stuff won't mix, but that vinegar and honey will mix up into a little solution. And then you fill about that much water, mix it together with that honey and vinegar, and drink it. I tell you, it'll taste about like apple cider. If it's apple cider vinegar, it'll taste like cider. It'll be a little strong maybe. Now my wife, she don't like it like that. She takes about 3 teaspoons of vinegar. But I like that vinegar. The vinegar and that honey, it'll just like that. It'll clear up your brain. It'll clean right up your brain. It'll give you, the honey will give you energy, and you'll be able to think straight. Now look at me like I'm a dumb gluck and some naturalist screwball, but it works in my life. I tell you, works. Now I'll tell you what you can do too. Use the same thing. About 4, 5, 6 teaspoons of vinegar, teaspoon of honey, mix it up, put it in water in. You got a sour stomach, you got a heartburn, drink it. Just like that. It'll take it away. One is acid, the other is, what is the counter to acid? Antacid. Huh?
Alkaline.
I can't hear you.
Alkaline.
Yeah. And it just counteracts, just like that. Sweeten your stomach up with it. Maybe you don't get sour stomachs. Maybe you don't feel vomiting and nausea. Maybe you don't ever have a heartburn. But well, I'll tell you, it'll work. In the middle of the night when you don't want to know what to do. Whew. Helped me lots of times. But it's helped me to preach too a lot of times. Oh, I'm not giving vinegar and honey credit for the Holy Ghost and the power of God. But you got to have your mentality too to go along with it.
That's right.
We talked last week about that, getting down in the bottom of one of those intelligence cycles. You get down in here and you don't know, you don't have a good outline, you don't know where you're going, you better have some vinegar. Something, anyway. I'm going to do one more because I need to, but I'm not getting anywhere near what I thought I would tonight. In verse 15 and 16. Lay not wait, O wicked man, against the dwelling of the righteous. Spoil not his resting place. For a just man falleth 7 times, and riseth up again. but the wicked shall fall into mischief. Don't ever think to overthrow the righteous. Don't you ever lay your hand on a good, godly person to do that person harm. God is going to fix your little red wagon and take the wheels right off of it. God will enable that man to stand, but you will fall. Romans 14:4 says, "Who art thou that judgest another man's servant? To his own master he standeth or falleth. Yea, he shall be holden up, for God is able to make him stand." I would think that, as that verse 16 says, "For a just man falleth 7 times and rises up again, but the wicked shall fall into mischief." What I'm trying to tell you, there's no excuse for backsliding if you're saved. Even though you may fall 7 times, God will pick you back up again if you're a born-again Christian. But don't ever be responsible for making somebody else fall. That's what the previous verse says. I brought along a whole pack of stuff for this, but I'm not gonna get into it because it's too long. But when you criticize someone else, Paul said here, as I have read to you out of the 14th chapter of Romans, he said in verse 10, "But why dost thou judge thy brother? Why dost thou set at naught thy brother? For we shall all stand before the judgment seat of Christ." And when you criticize somebody else, that makes you small. That belittles you. It makes you a small person when you criticize somebody else. It might make somebody else fall. Now these are all my little poems. It makes you small, but it makes somebody else fall. And they say, what is to this Christianity? These people cut down each other. They chew each other up. They talk about each other. Don't ever be a dumb, stupid Christian that would talk about your brother. That'll never do anything but make you a small person. Number 3, it makes the church stall. That is, it stops the growth. It disrupts unity. Number 4, it makes the church covenant null. N-U-L-L, that breaks the covenant. We are to uphold one another and we're to love one another, and we're to encourage one another, and we're to pray for one another. And when you don't do that, you're critical. You see, who in a Sam Hill do you think you are anyway? Who do you think you are? That's another one of my things that takes a lot of gall. Some big shot Joe like you know how everybody else ought to live. But it causes the devil to have a ball. You just believe yourself right with the devil when you're a critical person. And the last one, it builds a wall, the barricade of blessings. God would like to bless and use you. Can't do it because you are in the way. You're a troublemaker. You're a critical person. Stop it. Just stop it. Just stop it. Just before I came to church tonight, somebody said something to me over the phone about something critical. Oh, I said, nah. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt, okay? That's whatever. You don't fall in line with people. I don't pay anything. You can tell me all you want to tell me about Brother Armstrong, and I'd say, that's not true. That is not true. Well, it's not true, I don't believe it, you can't convince me that. I know that man, he's not gonna do that. See, that's what you do. And it makes them mad almost, I'm making people mad, said, I know what he said. I know, I was in a restaurant with a fellow missionary, he was telling me about the man who was the head of the mission board. He said, he's a liar. I said, I know that man real well, I never heard him lie in my life. Oh, he lie. I said, oh, no, he don't lie, he don't lie. And that missionary had a falling out with me, and I said, oh, no, I said, you don't have to be mad at me, I'm just telling the truth, he didn't lie to you. And it was just before he came to church to present his work again, afresh and report. And I raised money for him to go back to the field. I know it must have made him feel like a worm. But, that's what you do. You love those that despitefully use you, and you pour coals of water, hot coals on their head, and you just love your enemies. It drives them nuts. You just drive them nuts because they don't know what to do with you. I'm not going to criticize this guy anyway. You pretty well got my lessons for tonight. I hope that we did. We got from verse 11, we got down to verse 14. Is that what we did? You can shut that off now. No, we started earlier than that. We started chapter, we got verse 8. So we got verse 8, that's what we did. Verse 9, and we got verse 10 and 11 and 12 and 13 and 14. Is that what we got?
15 and 16.
15 and 16. Now, could I tell you something, class? I'm sorry to report this tonight, but my little grandson will not be here tonight. His wife has severe headaches. She's almost died. They've been married about 2 years. She's been in the hospital about 30 times. And he was up with her all night long last night, all night long. And he said, he just couldn't come tonight. He just couldn't come. So I said, well, we can forgive him, can't we? And we just canceled the next class, and so I could have gone on for another hour. But I don't want to do that. I want to ask you though, if you have some questions, or if I could be of any help to you, I want to. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. Would you ask me some questions, or would you give me something you learned tonight? I'd appreciate it. What did you learn tonight, Brother Armstrong?
I enjoyed the 9 or the 8 fears that
Yeah.
you spoke of.
That's basically true, too.
And, I worked for somebody 2 years ago who was 87 years old, and I asked them what their secret was, and she smiled and she said she takes vinegar and honey for breakfast.
It's an old trick. It's been done for centuries. And it'll cure a lot of problems. It cleans out your liver. It'll do a lot of good things. And you'll be surprised. It'll energize you. It won't give you enough strength to, work at a steel mill, but it'll give you some help. What do you say?
Yeah, I appreciate the testimony about Mrs. Green and how you let the Lord lead. And that's a real blessing when you see that, because that's the way it ought to be.
Yeah, I just want God. I want God more than I want her. I tell you what, I got along without her. For 55 years. I could have got along without her the rest of my life. I could never get along without God, follow God. That's the way I feel about it. I am kind of a screwball, and you'll get all this screwball stuff out of me while I'm teaching classes, because I do say things that are probably screwball. What do you say, Bill?
What I say is, specific.
That's nothing, I'm just trying to get rid of it, it's just got a couple scriptures on it, so. Anyway, is there anybody else got something to say? What do you say, Susan?
I like how you do the best you can, and if somebody else doesn't like it, well,
You're doing the best you can, the only way you know how to do it.
yeah.
For the glory of God, and nothing else can you say. And I say the four winds. That's the Bible phrase, you know, the four winds.
Yeah.
North, east, west, and south. Go on. What do you say?
I like what you said about no man's judgment is better than his knowledge.
Isn't that the truth?
That's good.
And that's why you want to get all the knowledge you can.
That's not to judge everybody.
Have you ever got somebody get up and preach, didn't have any knowledge, didn't know what they were saying, it's just a lot of hot air and wind. Oh, they make a lot of big noise, big, I told you, didn't I ever tell you about that boy that he got called to preach, he came home, and he told his mother, he said, "Mother, I got called to preach tonight." Well, he said, "That's one," she said, "I want you to preach." He said, "Well, I can't preach." He said, I got called tonight, I haven't been to Bible, I can't preach. He said, "I want you to preach right now." He said, "Well, Mother, I don't know how to preach." She said, "I don't. You got called to preach." And she was so forceful that he did, so I'll do what I can. So he said there was this little red hen, and it was out here in the yard, and it would go around and pick up bugs and grubs and worms and seeds and things, and you'd jump up on the horse tank and drink water out of the trough there, and fly up on the pump handle and get out in the garden and see what he could find out there. And while he was out there in the garden, here come a little red fox down through there, and he jumped on that little red hen and ate him up. She said, "Well, go on." Well, he said, "That's it." He said, "You really can't preach, can you?" He said, "I told you I couldn't preach." So he went away to Bible college, graduated, come home. She said, "Now, son, I want you to preach." He said, "Okay." He said, there was this little red hen. And it was out here in the yard. And it would pick up grubs and bugs and things in the yard and jump up in the horse tank and drink water out of their horse tank and up on the pump handle and out in the garden and do what he could find out there. And then this dirty, dastardly, low-down red fox came in, jumped on that little red hen, and ate him up. He said, "Man, you can preach, can't you, son?" That's what a lot of hot air and wind sauce do. But you better know what you're talking about and do your homework before you get up and preach. Anybody else want to say something? All right, what do you say here?
Your whole talk about, well, you gave the quote, if it's too hot in the kitchen, get out,
Yeah,
all of that.
that just has to do with not being able to take it. If you don't have grit in your craw and sand in your pants, you'll get out. You'll get out. You can't take it. It's too much. It's too much, really. You pastor a church, you take responsibility, whether it's a bus pastor or whether it's whatever you do. Whatever you do, it's going to be hard. At times, it's going to be rough, tough, and hard to love, but so you have it. If you don't have it, you don't have it. You can't take it, you can't take it. It's just like going to work. Sometimes it's tough at work. Sometimes you don't get things done. You get in trouble. The boss chews you and gets mad at you and yells at you. You can quit if you want to. But it'd be best you stay there. You might be cooled down the next day and be all right. Understand what I mean? It's the way it is in the Lord. It's the way it is in the Lord's work. I'm going to let you go. It's 1/4 after. You can go home, or you can take me out to the restaurant, buy me a 12-inch steak or something. I don't care. I'm just kidding. But you're dismissed. I'm sorry about Sammy, but let's don't criticize him because he's got
Maybe Summer should try the vinegar and honey.
what's that?
Maybe Summer should try the vinegar and honey. Sammy's wife Summer
vinegar and honey.
Good.
For that.
And
Yeah,
Jake,
I
having
know,
swing
it's
it
kind
now,
of
that's
big.
about Cesaro, pretty cool.
Yeah. I gave, he said he can go get my notebook out. Not what that.
Oh, that door's unlocked, isn't it?
Yes?
You're in deep thought there, Greg.
Oh, well, I guess you could say that.
Or were you just sleeping?
Yeah, sleep with my eyes open.
Yep. I
What's
took a
that?
20-minute power nap.
I was just sleeping with my eyes
Really
open.
good. I just go all the way out.
Daydreaming?
Yeah, that's more like it.
Terrible when I got home from school.
Do you ride one of the buses, Brother Trevor?
Oh, you Sunday school? Yes.
Which one are you on?
I think it's Paul Carson's route.
Because the boys went out
We got
knocking on doors and they got
Forest
4
Dodge State.
prospects to ride the bus.
You guys need to go talk to.
Oh, really? It's
Do
in
you have it
Paul's
all written
territory?
down, the
Farm
information?
the kids out tonight?
We have the,
Lauren's mom and dad's house.
Oh,
stuff that in,
Those folks.
in my backpack. I'll get it to you by the end of tonight. Or you
Nice
guys,
you have a little time together. I'm just driving down the road, I enjoy that.
yeah.
They went down Irvington, that street that parallels Rex Street. It's the next one over from Rex.
Pretty expensive, right?
Yep.
Can I pray and get ready to go?
You bet.
Our Father, we love you and thank you for grace, goodness, mercy, kindness, love. You're so precious, Lord. You're more precious than gold. I love you and I ask you, God, to assist me tonight. And may something come out of this meeting tonight that would help somebody to get their life turned around in the right kind of a fashion. It may just speak this the right thing at the right time, hit them broadside. They might be more interested in making consecration and dedication of their life, serving the Lord than anything else in all the world. Well, thank you for it. Amen. Word tonight is chapter 24 and verse 17. Is the camera rolling? Okay. I would like to read 2 verses, 17 and 18. Rejoice not when thine enemy falleth, and let not thine heart be glad when he stumbleth, lest the Lord see it, and it displease him, and he turn away his wrath from him. I don't know how you people think. I know how I think. I don't want to do anything that's going to displease the Lord. I make enough dumb mistakes just stumbling along, rather than just deliberately doing something that I know would displease him. It makes me feel so bad when I displease him. And one of the things he said here that displeases him so much is that when somebody that you don't really care about, somebody that has treated you wrong, or maybe somehow or other slandered you, or your prejudice against them, or something or other, that you would rejoice when they get into serious trouble. When a calamity comes upon their life. God has an all-seeing eye. He doesn't miss a thing. There's a couple, 3 incidences in the Bible. For instance, Ezekiel 26, you don't have to turn there, I just want to cite it, but it talks about the city of Tyre, Tyre. Now, Tyre sits right up on the Mediterranean, just, well, almost to Lebanon. Tyre and Sidon, two cities right there. At any rate, when Jerusalem fell, and when they were taken captive by the Babylonians, Ezekiel said that they rejoiced over the destruction of Jerusalem. It upset God so much that he obliterated Tyre from the map. And it was a little city, but it was set out in the ocean to see just a little bit. And he caused it to be destroyed until there was nothing left but a rock on which fishermen would dry their nets on. Now that's going a long ways. It was also told about in Ezekiel 25 about how that Amnon did the same thing. I was going to read it to you. It says, "For thus saith the Lord God, because thou hast clapped thine hands, stamped with thy feet, and rejoiced in heart with all thy despite against the land of Israel. Behold, therefore, I will stretch out my hand upon thee, and I will deliver thee for a spoil to the heathen, and cause thee to perish out of the country." It was just like when those two towers fell in New York. There was dancing in the streets of Egypt, in Cairo. And those Arab countries, they just thought that was the most wonderful thing in the world. But when the whole battle is over and the smoke is cleared, and they'll be obliterated also, because God cannot stand that sort of thing. It was also said about Edom that they committed this same unpardonable sin. And I'm reading from Obadiah, got just a one chapter book, but verse 12 said, "Neither shouldest thou have rejoiced over the children of Judah in the day of their destruction. Thou shalt be cut off forever." You know, you can't figure God out. I can't figure him out. But there are some things that are pretty clear in the Bible. And that's one of them. God does not care for us or anybody to belittle people that are going through calamities and difficulties and problems. Even though it may be your worst enemy and you would say it couldn't happen to a better fella. You're glad it happened to them. They deserved it. Now watch out, because God's listening ears and all-seeing eyes, he doesn't care for that kind of stuff. There are people that kind of cut in front of us in our lives, kind of take over things. Sometimes, you know, they do us wrong, slander us. I remember a kid in high school, every time I'd go out for a position on the football team, he'd go out for it too, and he'd contest me to try to get in and be on the first string. And it always bothered me as a kid. I didn't say too much about it, but there's always people that are trying to crowd you out, push you out of business and hurt you, and they may fall and break their leg, or might have died of cancer, or fall from a building, or get in an automobile accident. Don't say anything. Just don't say anything about it. You say, well, that's sort of silly, Brother Green. It may be, but God just doesn't care for us to do those kind of things. And don't rejoice over your enemy's problems. That's something that turns God off. Now, he said over and over again that you'll reap what you sow. If you do it, he said, I'll turn away from him and I'll bring this judgment up on you. So we're Christian people. We're Christians. We act like Christians. We feel sorry and have sympathy for people who are going through difficulties, even though they may not agree with us and be on the other side of the fence from us. Let's just behave ourselves. As the character building lesson of this verse is quite strong. It's stronger medicine than most of us can even comprehend tonight, because our mind can't think like God thinks. But God's jealous. He was jealous over Israel. You better keep your mouth shut, what he does. Proverbs 24 and 19 and 20. Fret not thyself because of evil men, and neither be thou envious at the wicked, for there shall be no reward to the evil man. The candle of the wicked man shall be put out. What it talks about is candle being put out. He's talking basically about his posterity. Now listen to me. His posterity. You know what posterity is? That's a continuation. I have 5 sons and 1 daughter. That's my posterity. I'm a Christian. I'm a preacher. I'm a servant of the Lord. I ask God to make my children that way, and that's the way they are. That's my posterity. And but the evil man, there will be no posterity. There will be no carrying forth. There will be his candle will be snuffed out into, of course, into darkness. And he's talking, don't get envious about the prosperity of the wicked person. Really, people, it's very temporary. If they did make $1 million or 10 million or $1 billion in lifetime, they're going to die and go to hell. If they don't know God, they're going to die and go to hell. It's very temporary. We're not looking at the short look. We're looking at the long look. And we may not have everything everybody else has got, carry on in the manner that they can carry on and live luxurious as they do. But I'm trying to say is that don't ever be envious. We're talking about getting green-eyed monster and jealousy over people that got more. And somebody rightfully has said, I wish you'd write this down, because to me it was classic when I first heard it, and I used it over and over again. The president of our college or seminary, Dr. J. Frank Norris, said these words, that people will hate you for 3 reasons. If you have more, know more, or do more. Can you understand that? If you have more, know more, or do more, people hate you for that. It's something that's inside of people. They can't stand somebody to get ahead of them. Psalms 9 and 17 says, the wicked shall be turned into hell, and all nations that forget God. Psalm 37 and 1 and 2, fret not thyself because of evildoers, neither be thou envious against the workers of iniquity, for they shall soon be cut down like the grass and wither like the green herb. Otherwise, it is not going to be. I really haven't got time to do all this reading, but the Bible interprets itself in Psalm 73, verse 3, for I was envious at the foolish when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. For there are no bands in their death, but their strength is firm. They're not in trouble as other men. Neither are they plagued like other men. Therefore pride compasseth them about as a chain. Violence covereth them as a garment. Their eyes stand out with fatness. They have more than the heart could wish. They are corrupt and speak wickedly concerning oppression. They speak loftily. They set their mouth against the heavens, and their tongue walketh through the earth. Therefore his people return thither, and waters of a full cup are wrung out to them. And they say, how doth God know? And is there knowledge with the Most High? Behold, these are the ungodly that prosper in the world. They increase in riches. It was, this kind of the continuity of the Bible. It mentions this a lot about people rising to the top and people being envious and they're wicked and ungodly, cuss, damn, and swear and live like hell, do whatever they want to do, and they don't seem to have all the troubles you got. You having a struggle to even make it through life and pay your bills and keep your house rent, keep your mortgage, and all that kind of stuff, but they don't have any problems. But this is all the heaven they're ever going to have is right here on this earth. And this is what Revelation said. And the devil that deceived them shall be cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. And I saw a great white throne, and him that sat upon whom the earth and the heavens fled away, and there was found no place for them. And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before God, and the books were open. And another book was open, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged out of those things which were written in the book, according to their works. And the sea gave up the dead which were in it, and death and hell did up the dead which were in it. And they were judged, every man according to his works. And death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. And whosoever was not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire. It may look wonderful right now to cuss, damn, and swear, drink, do all you want to do, chase women, be a womanizer, whoremonger, whatever. But it's coming to an end. It's temporary. But I like what Jesus said. I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. We're not going to die. We have eternal life. They have eternal death. So don't worry about it. Somebody looks like that they're made themselves really famous in this world, and they're wicked as hell. So what? One of these days you read the paper, they're gone. All their posterity is gone. All of their influence is gone. They're gone. I just know that it's pretty important to get your eyes straightened out and your priorities right, and not to be interested in worried about the wicked because they're coming to an end. But trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not upon thine own understanding, but in all of thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. And I tell you, if you love the Lord, trust the Lord, live for God, I'll tell you what will happen. You'll end up smelling like the rose of Sharon, because you'll be right next to him when we get to heaven. And if you want to live for the devil in that crowd, you'll end up smelling just like the sulfur of hell. Brimstone and whatever's down there. You'll smell just like the rest of them down there. Sin and wickedness and worldliness, it may seem appealing and to you, but someone well said that all the devil's worm, all the devil's apples have worms, every one of them, every one of them. And they look good, but they're just full of worms. And the devil lies, of course, deceives the whole world, and so on. Well, anyway, that's those verses. And 21 through 22 of Proverbs 24, my son, fear thou the Lord and the king, and meddle not with them that are given to change. For their calamities shall rise suddenly, and who knoweth the ruin of them both? Fear the Lord, fear the king. That is, have respect for God, the Word of God, the things of God. Have respect for the government, the things of the government. As Jesus said, give unto Caesar the things that are Caesar, give unto God the things that are God. But listen to me, don't meddle. He said, don't meddle with them that are given to change. That is, always want to change the law, always want to change the Bible, always want to change the rules. And that's a crowd. That's that wicked, ungodly crowd, that liberal crowd that's out there. I am a conservative. I have been one all of my life. My dad was a conservative. My dad was a Republican. I'm not trying to put down Democrats, but my dad was a Republican. I've been brought up that way in conservative thinking. And the Bible teaches that sort of same philosophy of preserving. That's conserve. You conserve, you preserve, you sort of protect things. And I'm a fundamentalist, a Bible-believing King James fundamentalist. And being so, I really feel like my responsibility, along with a lot of other things, is to preserve the Word of God. And we're printing the Word of God here in our facility. We are preaching the King James Bible. And there'll be never, as long as I live and as long as I have my mentality, there'll never be anybody stand in that pulpit and deliberately read from another Bible and preach from it. I mean, somebody might take it up there to compare that with the King James to show you how wrong it is. But as far as taking their text, I'd set them right down. I'd walk right up there and say, no, we're not having that here in this church. And if somebody comes in here with a bass guitar and starts plinking away on that old bass, I said, no, we're not having that bass guitar. We don't have bass guitars in this church. And they say, well, that's a screwball. Yeah, I know it. I'm screwball. Who cares? I don't care. That's why when Elvis brought it in, I didn't want it in my church. If Elvis Presley was going to have one, I didn't want one. And ever since Elvis had that cutaway bass guitar, and everybody thinks it's just so great, boom, 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 boom. I said, that's not for me. We're not going to have it. We're not going to have it. And I haven't had it. I've had quartets and singers come, and they drug out their bass, and I said, well, put it back in the case. If you can't sing without it, don't even bother to sing. Say, Brother Green, you're mean. No, I'm not mean. I just don't want it. I don't want that beat. I don't want that rock music. I don't want anything contemporary in this outfit. And that's a fundamentalist. Don't give over to those that are to change everything. I go into churches all the time. I see the change. They're changing. And they're getting away. They're doing away with the old songbooks. They put their own stuff up on a screen. Even good fundamental Bible-believing people are doing it now. And I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Say, well, nothing. No, maybe nothing wrong with it. But I know what they're doing at the Pentecostal crowd. They haven't got any place for a songbook in their hand. They couldn't shout and praise God if they had a songbook in their hands. So they don't want a songbook, so they can hoo-hoo-hoo. I don't mind the hoo-hoo-hoo, ha-ha. I do a little of that myself, but I don't have to, I lay my songbook down. I'm not going to go that route. I'm a fundamentalist, and I'm a Baptist, and a capital B, and a capital A, and a capital P, and a capital T, and a capital I, and a capital S, and a capital T. I'm a Baptist, full-blooded Baptist, and no interdenominational mugwump foolishness is coming on in this place. You see the mugwump. You say, what's that? Well, that's sitting on a fence with your mug on one side and your wump on the other. That's a compromiser, a mugwump. Well, anyway, we're here to preserve, and we're here to protect, and to contend for the faith that was once delivered unto the saints. I'm one of those kind of people that still believe in America. We ought to preserve and conserve America and not give it over to the enemies, not give it over to those that hate this country. Amen. I'm for boys fighting on the battlefield. You can say that, Brother Green. They're not going to call you. You're a 77-year-old man. I know that, but I've got some grandchildren that are just ripe for the battlefield. I want to just tell you something. I'm for America. I'm a card-carrying American, and I'm for America. Oh, boy, don't get me started. I might do a little preaching here tonight. I'm here to promote the free enterprise system. I like capitalism. I believe it's a part of the Bible. I believe that God tells everybody that every tub has to sit on its own bottom, and everybody has to make their own wages and pay their own bills and not live off of the government. Oh, I am so much that way. I'm a screwball. I gave up 40 years ago all of my Social Security and canceled out of the Social Security program. I don't get one penny of Social Security. No Medicare, no nothing. I don't want it. I never wanted it. I won't take it. Now, if you want it, that's fine. You do as you please. But preachers, pastors, and missionaries, ministers, and doctors were able to, years ago, opt out. And I opt out because of my convictions is that we don't need a socialized program in America. We need everybody to work for their own self, make their own living. Don't go, I want to preach tonight. I get upset about it. I get so upset. All these people freeloading off the government. Say, well, there are people who are poor and needy and handicapped. I understand that. Let's help them. But not able-bodied people. Don't get me upset because I get all upset. And I say I'm a conservative. I'm not given over to those that are given to change. That's what that verse says right there. And I still pledge allegiance to the flag. I do it. And my priorities are right. I say I render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar, and unto God the things that are God. But I place my priorities right. God comes ahead of everything in my own personal life. I just believe everybody ought to participate. I think everybody ought to participate in the Lord's work and in the free enterprise system. And everybody that's an American ought to vote on vote day. That's what they ought to do. I think we need to teach our young people to be conservative, not liberals, not progressives, not these people that want to change. Our forefathers gave us the Constitution, and I like it just like it is, and I'm against all the rebels that are trying to tear it down, do something else. And you don't have to agree with me, but I wish you would. I think we ought to put down all this interdenominationalism. I have nothing to do with interdenominationalism or undenominationalism. We're Baptists. If we're Baptists, then raise the flag and thank God for the flag, the Baptist flag. That's why I put one out. I never found a Baptist flag, so I made one myself. And I'm just for the Baptists. That's what I'm for. Well, what about the rest of them? Well, let them worry about themselves. They've got enough to take care of the Baptists. I believe they're right. And you say, well, Brother Green, what would you be if you weren't a Baptist? I'd be ashamed. That's what I'd be. I'm a Baptist. I'm an American. Proud to be an American. I'm just, like I say, I get all stirred up pretty good. You can see that I do. And I'm not much of a a compromiser or a pussy putter. I think that it said here, my son, fear the Lord and the king, and meddle not with those that are given to change. For their calamity, their judgment shall rise suddenly. And who knoweth the ruin of them both? I think the greatest of all things is, like he said, my son, fear the Lord. If you fear the Lord, you'd probably think just about like I do. If you read the Bible, you'd think just about like I do. And you'd give God all the honor and all the praise, and you'd give him first place in your life. And I believe that if you would do that, you'd live a little longer and a little more healthier, and the blessings of God would be upon your life. Fear God and obey his word and keep his commandments. It's really not a grievous way to live. It's a wonderful way to live. Trust in the Lord. Trust and obey. For there is no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey. But it all begins with wisdom. The beginning of everything is wisdom and knowledge. Fear God, for it is the beginning of all wisdom. I would think, now you don't have to agree with me, but I feel that we need to fear civil laws, that is governmental laws, state laws, city laws. I'm in favor of that. Sometimes not what I would like them to be. Civil government is not always right, because a bunch of hell-bound idiots mostly run this country. And civil leaders aren't always Christian people. But we still have to obey the law. That's a part of being a Christian. I have nothing to do with anarchists, people who are troublemakers. Like this, the scripture says, who are given to change, wants to change things. They don't like the government. They don't like the establishment. They want to rebel against it. They want to rebel against the rules. They want to rebel against the Bible. Well, I say that anarchy is the most dangerous spirit that anybody could ever get into in their life. Now, when I first came here to this church back in 1955, this is 77. This is 05. I'm 77. That's 50 years ago. It wasn't long after I was here, I went to hear a man preach that was a prisoner in Russia. And they told about the communistic threat and the conspiracy to overthrow this government and set it into a communist state. Well, I got really wrapped up in that. I really did. And I've never been sorry that I stood for my country and against communism and socialism and that sort of thing. But I almost became a crusader for Americanism. There's nothing wrong with it. I wouldn't criticize anybody that got involved in it. But the crusade needs to be for Christ. And I almost lost myself in all of the deluge of getting involved in fighting communism. But now you can see, after the Berlin Wall went down and Gorbachev, these people, they stopped calling themselves communists. And they'd like to make you believe that communism is snuffed out completely. They probably changed the name, but they haven't changed their hearts. You know, there's still communists in this country. And somebody would say, Brother Green, you think there's a communist under every bush. No, I don't think there's a communist under Bush. There are probably 10 or 15 under the bush. That's what I'm not, but I'm saying that in the Proverbs, in chapter 17 and verse 11, evil men seeketh only rebellion. Therefore, a cruel messenger shall be sent unto them. Now you talk about a cruel messenger. You get rebellion in your heart and you want to change. You come into this church and say, I don't like the way Brother Green does this, and I don't like what's going on in this church, and I'm going to stir up trouble in this church. You need to be careful what you're doing, because God will send a cruel messenger. It might be named cancer. It might be named a heart attack. It might be named bankruptcy. It might mean something else, but God will send a cruel messenger to those that are full of rebellion. I probably said enough about that, but the calamity is sure to come to those who fight against God and constantly want to change everything. Doesn't it bother you, class, to see the numbers of Bibles, so-called, on the market? There's over 100 different versions of the English Bible. How stupid. God only wrote one Bible. One Bible. He didn't write that many Bibles. And these people who are really Bible rejectors and Bible correctors who want to change the meaning and pick up some screwball scholar, so-called, somewhere in his translation and preach from that corrupted text. Give me the King James Version of the Bible and the four winds on the rest of them. That's pretty strong language, isn't it? Well, you heard my sermon. I'm about ready to take up an offering now. But let's go to Proverbs 24:23. These things belong to the wise. It is not good to have respect of persons in judgment. You know, this respect of persons is one of the principles that's laid down from Genesis to Revelation. It really breaks God's law to show disrespect. This is what he said. This is the law. This is Deuteronomy 1:17. Ye shall not respect persons in judgment, but ye shall hear the small as well as the great. Ye shall not be afraid of the face of man. That is, you shouldn't allow people, though they got money and prestige and power, to go against a fellow that is little because this man's great and this guy could put you out of office or this guy could bring you harm or danger. And so you don't rightfully judge people. Speaking with the judicial system, of course, it's wrong. It's wrong for anybody to be a judge. I mean, this screwball Ed Kennedy said the other day about this fellow they just put in as Supreme Court Justice. Are you on our side or the other side? He said, I'm not on either side. I'm a judge. I'm supposed to judge right. I'm for the little guy and the big guy. Who's ever right, that's what's right. But that's not the way it is anymore. But anyway, that's the way it's supposed to be. And really it breaks, why don't you write these several things down, why it's not right to have respect of persons. First of all, it breaks God's law. And secondly, it's unlike God. Romans 5:11, for there is no respect of persons with God. If a person wanted to be somewhat like the Lord, then you could not respect person, not put one above the other. And not only that, but number 3, it's sinful. James 2:9, but if you have respect to persons, you commit sin. That's what he said. Now, we believe the Bible. And number 4, it's just unjust Romans 13:1, let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. Otherwise, there can be no injustice. There can be no respect of persons in our judgment of folks. It breaks down the respect for law. If I say it breaks down the respect for the law, if you go to the judge and you know he's not going to shoot straight, I mean, this guy has rooked you and crooked you and ripped you off, but because he's a bigger shot and you're a little shot, and he's going to favor you because he has votes to vote you back into office, that's wicked, you see. It's not fair. It's not really right. It's unjust. And it breaks down respect for the law. Proverbs 24 there, 23, and the next verse goes, he that saith unto the wicked, thou art righteous, him shall the people curse. Nations shall abhor him. When you tell somebody they're all right when they're not all right, well, you can't get away from this business of being a Christian and have things screwball and make bad judgment calls because of prestigious people, as he said in our text here, that we're not to be afraid of their face. Well, it just, not to be, I didn't send out our text, but Deuteronomy 1:17, you shall not be afraid of the face of a man, to be crooked because he looks tough and mean, or he looks like he's going to hurt you, or there's a threat on your life. You're supposed to do what's right. It also demonstrates something else. It demonstrates judges are not qualified to sit in judgment if they don't judge right. Proverbs 28:21, to have respect of persons is not good. For a piece of bread that man will transgress. For money, for something for yourself, you would shift the decision of a vote towards a man. You know, it's no telling the number of people that are in prison tonight that did not deserve to be in prison. They're rotting. They'll stay there the rest of their life. They were not guilty at all. But there are so many there that are guilty. And hardly any of them would ever confess that they were wrong. But still in all, there have been people go to prison who have been sent to the gallows and firing squad for something they did not do because somebody didn't shoot straight. Somebody wasn't honest. And somebody didn't really do all the interrogating that they needed to do to find the facts to make the right kind of a decision. It also encourages, this is number 7, it encourages and condones sin. He said in Proverbs 25:5, take away the wicked from before the king, and his throne shall be established in righteousness. In verse 14, take away the dross, verse 4, take away the dross from the silver, and there shall be come forth a vessel for the finer. Otherwise, when things aren't done just right, then wicked people are roaming the streets. People that ought to be in prison were walking up and down the streets of Lansing tonight because justice wasn't meted out and there was a respect of persons. And it's really contrary to the gospel. I'm going to read another little portion from James chapter 2. I've taken a little more time on some of these verses, but they're full of meaning. James chapter 2. My brethren, have not the faith of the Lord Jesus Christ, the Lord of glory, with respect of persons. For if there come into your assembly a man with a gold ring in goodly apparel, and there come in a poor man in vile raiment, and ye have respect to him that weareth the gay clothing, and say unto him, Sit thou here in a good place, and say to the poor, Stand thou there, or sit under my footstool. Are you not partial in yourselves, and become judges of evil thoughts? Hearken, my beloved brethren, hath not God chosen the poor of this world, rich in faith, heirs of the kingdom which he hath promised to them that love him? But ye have despised the poor, and do not rich men oppress you and draw you before the judgment seats? Do not they blaspheme that worthy name by which we are called? He's talking about just having respect of person. We have a character building lesson here that amongst God's people, Bill, there should be no big shots and little shots. No big people, no little people. I'd say God resisteth the proud, but he giveth grace to the humble. John the Baptist said, I must decrease, and he must increase. I don't know how you are getting along with your decreasing. Somebody said, how are you doing? Well, I'm increasing, I'm doing better. How are you getting along the other way? How are you getting along with your decreasing? And you're never really going to amount to much as a Christian until you get down in the dust. You understand what I'm talking? And there's just no big shots with God. So if you stay in the dust, you will be just about where you ought to be. I'm trying to hurry along here. I'm not doing too good, but we're in chapter 24, Proverbs, verse 24 and 25. He that saith unto the wicked, Thou art righteous, him shall the people curse, nations shall abhor him. But to them that rebuke him, it shall be delight, and a good blessing shall come upon them. When a person justifies the wicked and condemns the just, that person would be cursed by the people. And we're not to defend the wicked. We're to rebuke wrong. Now you listen to me in this little verse. God will bless you if you'll stand up for that little guy. You'll stand up for that's right. Now, I'm really want to be careful what I'm saying. I don't believe God would have you just go around trying to straighten everybody out. Oh my, no. We got enough of those people in our church already. They've got to straighten out everything and everybody all the time. They can whip out of their mouth before they even think, say hurt things, things that really disrupt the unity and the peace of the church, because they got to get this guy straightened out. Now listen to me. Stop fooling around. Now you ever pastor a church, you're not going to go around straightening people out. You're not going to do it. Now what I do all my pastoring basically from the pulpit. And I generally can, in general way, I can speak and counsel with the whole flock, rather than buttonhole some guy. Now if I have to buttonhole, I will. But 90% of the time, I can take care of things in the pulpit, and it's general, people accept it without being offended. But you start buttonhole people, you start grabbing them by the collar and saying, now you listen here, baby boy, Chico, you're going to have to straighten up. You might as well say goodbye. That guy is leaving the church.